I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you need the wrong or right.
Hello, Matt.
Hi, Rob.
How's it going?
Terrible. Let's talk about Spelljammer.
Let's talk about Spelljammer. I always, it feels weird. Things are happening in the world, but I don't want to talk about them. And I can never tell if people will be happy or less happy that they can't go back and listen to what we were talking about in the middle of the pandemic and world historical fire season. But also, it's optimistic for me to think that anyone will come back and listen to this at all, that there will be anybody to listen. Or maybe this will be the only thing that survives. Our podcast, desperately downloaded into a hard drive and hurled into the blackness of space. And then someday, aliens will discover the entire Dungeon Master of None archive, and they will be able to piece together the final days of Earth from our riffs at the beginning.
Earth was a hedonistic place. They only cared about playing games with each other. However, they also were deeply anti-capitalist for some reason. I don't know.
Doesn't match with our understanding of material culture. Hello, everyone. This is Dungeon Master of None.
All we have is this podcast and those two little line drawings of a lady going, "Hey, how's it going?"
That's right. It's us and the Voyager module.
The Voyager disc.
Yeah.
The Voyager gold discs. Yes. Okay. I'm Dungeon Master Matt.
I'm Dungeon Master Rob. What are we talking about, Matt?
Spelljammer, one of the last campaign settings, not the last. There are a couple more obscure ones from Wizards of the Coast for Dungeons and Dragons that we haven't talked about on this podcast, and my own personal favorite.
There's a lot to be said about Spelljammer, but I think the most important thing to say is that all of the art looks like the kind of art that could be spray painted on the side of your van. It is extremely awesome and late 80s metal art, extremely average quality, but it's the kind of thing that you would want.
Swirling nebulas, like wizards, stabbing tentacle monsters. Yeah.
It's pretty fucking rad. It's very
rad. We'll talk about this later. The art overall, however, is extremely low quality.
Oh, it's bad art
of Spelljammer stuff is great.
The good kind of bad art, but no, the overall art quality is pretty poor, all things considered.
So I feel like it's become a meme of the D&D community to demand that Wizards of the Coast bring back Spelljammer, because other than a single dragon, or maybe it was even polyhedron article, there has been nothing officially Spelljammer since 2nd edition, since TSR's days.
It is a meme, and every time there's a new announcement, either people jump into the mentions or they make a joke about people jumping to their mentions saying, "Bring back Spelljammer." It's the Freebird of the Dungeons and Dragons community in more ways than one. I love this setting, and I would love it if they brought it back. However, as you'll discover as we talk about, there are perhaps reasons why
There's a reason why it hasn't been brought back.
But it's very cool for a lot of reasons, and there's a lot of things about it that I think this was, honestly, Matt, this was really interesting for me to read as a DM, reread, and draw from. A lot of it is not super relevant or important or valuable, but there were definitely some things that were totally, sparked my imagination and gave me some ideas, and definitely some stuff that I'd like to borrow for all sorts of future D&D campaigns or adapt. It's definitely a heady series of books. There's a lot going on. But it's
a lot, and at the same time, so very little. This is the problem, the paradox of Spelljammer, which we'll get into.
If you can pick these up for cheap.
If you're out of the know,
yeah,
Spelljammer is D&D in space. I mean, that's it.
Yes, it says D&D in space. It is both exactly what you would expect and also not what you expect.
It's deeply weird.
It's very weird. Yes, it's high weird. Back when TSR still, had a little bit of, that pep in their step. Back when they still, were riding high on the glorious, days of 80s wealth and glory. I don't know. I don't know what was going on in the late 80s with TSR.
Do. Would you like to know?
Tell me about it. Tell me about it, Matt.
Here's the crazy thing is I don't think I would have ever guessed this or you would have ever guessed this, but like Spelljammer, the idea for it didn't come like from someone who had been running this campaign or anything like that. TSR just basically said, we need a box set for this fall. Let's pitch ideas. And at like a restaurant after Gen Con, a bunch of developers were sitting around and they were finally like, well, why don't we do D&D in space?
I love the idea of a bunch of TSR Wizards D&D guys sitting around a table at a Western Sizzlin' in Wisconsin and coming up with the idea of...
It was the Cactus Club.
I'm sorry.
In Lake Geneva, Wisconsin.
Geneva. At the Cactus Club, pounding beers and being like, what can we do? What can we do? What can we come up with that? I got it. D&D in space. It's amazing.
Yeah. Now, there were some predecessors. There are some really bad classic adventures, notably the M series, Into the Maelstrom, which basically has the player characters launch a like 200 ship fleet in an invasion. That's how the module starts. By the way, the combined party level for this module is 120 or higher. And then the ships get sucked into a whirlpool, and then they can fly in space in a different dimension. It's one of the worst modules I've ever read. There was also the Voyages of the Princess arc, which was a long-running series in Dungeon or Dragon by Bruce Hurd that had a flying ship. And, of course, there's tons of flying ships and all kinds of other things that are not D&D. So there were some predecessors, but Spelljammer, they were just like, we need a box set for this season. What's it going to be? Someone was like, D&D in space. That's my pitch. Imagine a knight standing in front of the stars. Okay, go for it. Then Jeff Grubb and many others wrote Spelljammer.
So I would say this is definitely worth looking at if you're a DM and you're interested just for the nostalgia value. I would not spend very much money on this. If you can find it for cheap at a yard sale or online or something, definitely pick up these books, but don't go out of your way
Here's a random story, Rob. Speaking directly on this, I was once at a game store in Amsterdam, and back in the back corner.
Oh, look at Mr. Worldwide over here.
You know, what can I say? I'm not going to... I definitely got to mention where it was. People need to know.
Just kidding.
Things, you got to go, Rob. You got to go. Things are a little different over there. It's the little things. Instead of Dungeons and Dragons, they have
stroopwafels and
dikes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the things they got over there.
Windmills and fuck. I can't find two Dutch things that start with the same letter. I'm just like
polders and
pikemen. That's pretty good. Yeah, I don't know.
Polders and pike. They do have a lot of pikemen there. And you know the back corner of game stores. They're the same everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Right? The game store owner had a stack of both unopened box sets, the Spelljammer campaign setting and the Legend of Spelljammer, and most of the other books. And I offered him, let me see, I think it was like $100 US. So it's like 80 euros at the time for all of them. And he was like, let me think about it. I gave him my number. I left. I came back the next day, and he was like really close to selling it to me, and then he backed out of it. So
you almost certainly would have overpaid for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I have a really shitty. They were in pristine condition, Rob.
Nobody
my copy's
cares.
Really shitty.
Nobody cares.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay.
Anyway,
so Spelljammer's deeply weird.
Yeah.
Let's start with the deep weirdness. It's Aristotelian, I think, is maybe the best way to describe,
or even Ptolemaic. Yeah, it's based on a very ancient understanding of the cosmos. Every planetary system is its own crystal sphere, which are then suspended in the vastness of the phlogiston.
So they're just bobbing in space,
yeah,
Rob. Each one's bobbing in the phlogiston.
Yeah, I'm going to say it phlogiston.
The flow.
The flow.
I'm going to call it the flow because I'm a hip cat.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, if you want to ask, this is the canon interpretation of the D&D multiverse still to this day, right? You'll find mentions of it in other books that while you may have the Great Wheel cosmology and all that good jazz, all of the different worlds of D&D, with a couple exceptions, Barovia, Eberron, are all in their own crystal spheres.
That's right. You can go to Kryn space or Earth space or Gray space or what's the sphere that Toril is in? I forget.
Realm space.
Realm space, right.
Realm
yeah,
space.
You can just
which is maybe one of the better books.
You can hop in your interplanetary Spelljammer vessel and scurry between the spheres and get from one to the other. But yeah, that's how it's done.
We don't want to spend too much time on this, but one of the deep weirdnesses is that all things in the universe on the material plane have their own gravity plane. So if you have a ship, then gravity just exists along top of that ship for basically convenience sake, and it takes its own air bubble with it. So you can sail, a galleon into the stars and into wild space, the area between planets within a crystal sphere.
That's right. Which is like actual space, like it's a vacuum, and so you need your own air bubble.
Yeah.
And every...
Your air will foul, so good spelljammers are covered in plants, which is just cool, right?
It's very
Obviously,
cool. It's very cool.
Oh, look, we're sailing a ship in space covered in potted plants.
What else would you do? And every vessel has or comes with or can be piloted by a helm, which is like a mystical device which can be powered by any divine or spellcaster, basically. In second edition, there's not. It's we'll get to that, but yeah, you
burn spells.
You strap on your helm and you fly between planets, and
it's not an actual helm though.
Sorry.
It's usually like a throne.
It's a thing you sit on.
You strap in.
Strap into your throne. Sorry, that's cooler.
It's just the wrong preposition. It's not a big deal. You're forgiven.
Unless, of course,
you can already tell from our conversation who's the real Spelljammer pedant here, who has devoted years.
I am a big
it.
fan of Spelljammer. However, Matt is the expert here. Yeah, unless you're sacrificing life force in a what's the other thing called?
I think it's just called a life helm.
Life helm. But yeah, you sacrifice your spells, and any dumbass mage can pop in there and fly between planets, and that's how it's done. It's
the one thing I really like about this is one of the things that's wrong with D&D is that wizards and clerics don't have enough to make them feel truly special. And by making flying the ship in Spelljammer a thing that they alone can do.
Yeah.
And take charge whenever the action is centered around flying the ship, which will probably be a lot of the time. That they're the basically only
in addition
character.
to being the most powerful member of the party most of the time, they also are the only ones. They are the captain of the ship and the helmsman. And if you are a fighter in a Spelljammer campaign setting, you are basically the wizard's bitch all the time.
Hey, you get to board some ships occasionally. That's going to be fun. Spelljammer also, brings up this idea of the flow, this highly flammable gas that, of course, we all know is the medium for the transmission of all matter.
Sure.
And it exists outside the crystal spheres, and there's sort of rivers and things in the flow, so you can go from certain crystal spheres to another in a giant spider web network that connects the entire multiverse.
Yeah,
and the flow is flammable. It's
extremely flammable. We got to talk about the rules in a bit, but there's
just
hyperspace. A very elaborate rules for what happens if you cast spells in the Phlogiston, and their fire spells are light a match. I don't know if this was intended, but this was a very clever way to avoid having to deal with canon, even though this is basically like a sea, it's a seagoing ship campaign setting, and actually bombards are mentioned in the book, but it's it's very easy to say, well, most ships don't have cannon because you can't fire them in the flow, and that makes sense.
This is, I think, gets at the central paradox of what makes Spelljammer so great and at the same time so terrible. I think we can criticize a lot of the second edition stuff, and if you're getting things you're not going to get too much out of the original campaign setting book. It's mostly advice for what happens if you cast, raise campfire in the flow. Who fucking cares, right? Don't light fires in the flow. Bad things will happen. Would have been enough. But there's a lot of wasted space in a lot of the Spelljammer books. But what it does so well is it's a campaign setting that, one, and this is the intention here, could be used for an entire campaign setting. You could have an entire Spelljammer campaign that takes place from the beginning of the campaign as the players find their magic spaceship, or you could incorporate parts for if you're doing a campaign in the Forgotten Realms and all of a sudden you want to go to the moon, which in fact is, of course, inhabited by hedonistic moon goddess worshippers who hate you. You can. And that's the great thing.
Much like Planescape, it works really well to either weave together other campaigns or to start a campaign or to take an existing campaign to the next level. But it's again, much like the Planescape books, a really useful tool to have if you were trying to build a larger world or take your players somewhere a little bit more interesting or transition from one type of play to another. It's a tool in your toolbox.
Now, the downside is, I think where it fails, unlike Planescape, is Planescape has a ton of cool things going for it, most of which are the fact that infinite realities everywhere.
Yeah.
But one, Planescape has a killer art style that really connects it all together. And while there's some cool cover art in Spelljammer, they really never had the budget or the right art direction to tie everything together.
Yeah, and
almost, I think all the all the Spelljammer books have no color illustrations on the inside.
Yeah, it's a lot
and
of black and white.
They're very spare. The second thing, go ahead.
I think you're gonna say. Go ahead and say. I think it's what I'm gonna say too, though.
Planescape has all kinds of interesting NPCs and locations and stuff, despite it being an infinite thing.
Yep.
And Spelljammer has like one or two. There's not much there that is really cool.
Spelljammer has a couple of really neat like organizations and some cool stuff about certain species, but in general, it's super, super sparse when it comes to like actual like campaign hooks or people, ideas, faction, places. It's just real. We will talk about.
Finger of the Lady of Blades has more story potential than basically everything in Spelljammer. It's not the fault of the concept; it's the fault of the execution.
And this is the thing, is that unlike, it's sort of like the opposite of this is sort of the inverse of Golarion, right? Golarion is a tedious, tired, boring concept filled to the brim with, some good, some bad, but kick-ass cool ideas, right? You can take and leave. Yeah. Spelljammer is a fucking awesome concept. Just so fucking cool. It's just absolutely threadbare. It's just basically
the Tanari are in the details, Rob, on this one.
It really is like just the concept. And we'll talk about what's actually in the book, and there are some exceptions, but what's so disappointing is that they've sketched out just a super cool setting and then failed to actually fill it with anything. There's hints of just absolutely super cool stuff. But you're left to your own devices.
And we'll get you the cool stuff and leave the rest behind. Yeah. I think one of the, if there's one other thing, if you're wondering like why Planescape has never come back, I think it is the details suck. And also Planescape had some really cool adventure modules written for it, right? Or ones that touched
it really
on Planescape.
Did. And Spelljammer didn't, right?
I have read every Spelljammer adventure, and they all suck. I ran for you the best one, and I think you hated it.
I hated it for reasons that had nothing to do with the module itself. It was just very complicated, Matt, and that wasn't your fault. It was just very complicated.
What, you didn't want to decode the 12 murals that allowed the Death Star Beholder Death Star to come back together? That's why it's cool. It's got a Beholder Death Star.
It was cool once we finished it. It was a cool module. It was just it asked a lot from us. Matt loves puzzles, and we are as a group, we are not the best puzzle group. So like, here's the thing. The Concordance of Arcane Space, which is sort of kind of the campaign setting, the core book or whatever. I mean, it's like 100 pages long. And every single one of those 100 pages is rules, or basically like something rules related, like in an explanation of a element of Spelljammer that is then elaborated upon in pages upon pages of needlessly complicated rules, and it's
the sad thing is they're not even good rules.
no, they're
like,
very
the rules
they're
for
actually
ship
they're
combat
they're
are
quite bad. They're quite bad. I'm gonna so we have to talk about some of this. Here's what I will say about this, which is good, is that if you like strip out all of the actual rules, you have a framework that's like, here are the things that I should consider when I am trying to design my own ship combat system, for example. Like it does thoroughly and exhaustively cover all sorts of situations so that you, for example, know how to calculate the damage that's done when you ram a space dragon, or what sort of roll that you might want to make when you are shearing another vessel in a pitched space battle. However, the rules are bad. They're unnecessary. They're, I mean, some of this is the fault of like second edition. This is just very, very second edition. But most of the book is this shit, and like you would never like. You don't have anything you need to actually run a campaign, right? But you have everything you need for your first, ship combat with a gnomish, hammer. What's it?
Sidewheeler.
Sidewheeler. Sorry.
I'm so excited that I know the name. Yes, I think our first piece of advice for you, if you're interested in Spelljammer, Google Spelljammer and read what it says about spelljamming. You'll have enough to make any rulings you need to do.
Yeah.
And then instead, if you're playing in, for example, Dragonlance, Greyhawk, or Forgotten Realms, pick up the appropriate Spelljammer book that details that Crystal Sphere.
Crystal Sphere. I mean,
there's one good page in the Concordance of Arcane Space, Rob, and can I share it with you?
Share it with me.
It's one of my favorite pages. There are 5 bullet points of alternate solar systems, and I wish there were 50. It's on page 75. For example, the planets are all mounted on the tops of are flat and are on the tops of infinitely tall pillars.
There are other pages that I like. For example, I love the ship pages where they describe the different vessels, which are super, super, super cool. Again, way more rules than are necessary, but I do love reading about, a dwarven citadel or a beholder tyrant ship, or, a gnomish sidewheeler, for example. These are cool. Again, more things that you don't need.
The dwarven citadel makes me so mad, though, because the dwarves can't have normal spelljammers, so what powers their ship? Their furious business acumen. They're just hard Protestant work ethic.
They are.
As they all work, their
incredibly
ship moves
Calvinist. They're powering it with the power of predestination.
And this is, I think, an easy fix, Rob. And we've done it in my campaign. Is I think one thing that I would suggest you do is, if you want to run a Spelljammer campaign, maybe get rid of the concept of helms. Create magical ships that just sail through the air. Maybe they have magic sails or shit, right? Because then everyone has something to do on the ship.
There's no reason. There's absolutely this is just such a weird artifact of 80s D&D design thinking that somehow it has to be a magic user. Why? Have the helm be a literal
The ship is a magic artifact, right?
It's a magic artifact, right? You shovel, I don't know, diamond dust into its furnace to make it go, or not. It just goes on its own.
Or it catches the winds of the ether. Throw an ether in there, right? When you don't know what to do, throw in the word ether.
There's literally no reason for for the helm to be a thing that matters. You could have some ships still have a helm, but why not have other ships?
Maybe the helm takes you to the Flawed, right?
Yeah, it's just such a weird thing. Okay. Speaking, I want to take a side tangent, and talk about many of the things that are absolutely bewildering to me. And my favorite was very early on in the Concordance of Arcane Space. There's a whole section on clerics and other divine spellcasters, and what happens when they are.
Yes, I completely forgot about that. Sorry, Rob. You should have picked the druid class.
what they do when they're in the flow, if they are in a crystal sphere where their god or pantheon doesn't have influence, there are ways around this. Like you can pick certain like divine pantheons or follow Ptah or what's
the path in the way.
The path in the way. But like if you're fucking dumb enough to pick, to be a cleric of Lathander or something like that, then you have to like, you're like, okay, I'm in the flow, so I can only recover second level spells right now. I got to make sure when I get to this next crystal sphere that Lathander has a presence or like a partner god or something so that I can regain. It's so dumb and also punishing. I don't know why you would ever play a cleric in Spelljammer. This
is just another thing that's like, if you just ignore this rule, everything is fine.
Yeah.
Well, of course clerics can cast spells in other crystal spheres. They're fucking clerics. They have a special connection to their god.
This is just like such a rookie fucking mistake. Like the setting serves the game, not the other way around. Like you are playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Which is so funny. Because everything about the crystal spheres, the flow, the sort of gravity just kind of exists. Everything takes its own air bubble with it. Is all like they were like, all right, yeah, the physics of the world should, or metaphysics in this case, serve the game. But then they kind of just like, well, obviously it's not going to be fun to be a cleric.
Right. I mean, I think this is a clear like indication and like flashlight into like what the early designers thought fun was or thought was fun or what they enjoyed about designing and playing
And
D&D.
this isn't even early designers.
No,
this
it's not even that
late
early.
80s, early 90s.
This is definitely, the sophomore effort.
Third generation.
And still, what is it that they get excited about? What is it that they enjoy? And I'll tell you what it is. It is pages and pages and pages of describing what happens if you walk upside down in space, or how fast your air goes bad in an air bubble.
Here's the thing, and I was going to save this for later, but before we get, maybe we can get all this bad stuff out of the way and get to the good stuff.
The thing is, I feel like we got to talk about the rules first, and then we can talk about the setting.
It's the fundamental flaw here is that Spelljammer is a great one-sentence concept, D&D in space. But looking at our own campaign worlds, your campaign worlds, other published campaign worlds, we know that is a good place to start, but it's not the whole story, right?
Right.
Dark Sun is a great one-sentence concept. Eberron is one. But there are other great campaign settings, Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, that come from a place of one to many talented creators had a real passion and a ton of brimming ideas for building a really cool world to tell stories in. And Spelljammer, beyond that one-sentence concept, kind of lacks that.
There are tons of tables and bullet points and lists, and I would not recommend that you read any of this. One cool thing, one exception I do want to make, Matt, that I, again, of limited usefulness, but I think is kind of cool, is that at the end of the Concordance of Arcane Space are a series of tables for creating your own like universes, your own crystal spheres. And again,
and making them really weird.
Limited usefulness, however, yeah, if you roll on these tables, you will create a weird as fuck sphere, which is cool. Even if like you're just like, here's my world. I don't know, maybe someday the players want to go to the moon. What else is out there? And then you can sort of roll and be like, oh, there's a air body, 3 planets with an air body and a portal to another plane, and all these, they move clockwise against the orbit. It's
they're on the back of this one's carried by a giant space wagon.
Yeah. This is good. It's fun. It's weird. Again, there's stuff to borrow from this book. However, you must be very selective. Again, I would like to take and heavily modify some of the ship combat stuff because it's very thorough. The rules just suck. But yeah. I like the idea.
Yeah, what would be more fun than your players like building their magic spaceship, leaving the atmosphere of their world, then discovering that their entire planet is on the back of, a frost giant and a fire giant, and they can go down and talk to them.
Yeah.
So
this is the box set, right? The Concordance and the lore book is like the first box set, right?
Yeah, it's like basically your DMs and players books.
So the Concordance of Arcane Space is the first, and like we've talked about, it's mostly weird rules. It does explain like how everything works, but largely it's you'll get to the end of it and be like, whoa, I just like what did I get from that? But the second part, which is unfortunately shorter and still also includes a lot of useless rules, is the Lore Book of the Void. However, the Lore Book of the Void is definitely, to me, the more interesting of the two, and it tells us about a lot of cool things.
Some of the first things is there are a couple cool new races and a couple new species that have a Spelljammer twist. Who would have known that lizard folk are everywhere in space? But you also get my favorite new race, the only one that's been updated for 5th edition, which is the GIF.
The GIF.
They're just hippo guys who love firearms and explosives. What more do you want?
They're hippos. You love them. Yeah, Spelljammer it's also got the Neogi, which are they purely Spelljammer? Am I getting this wrong? Correct.
Yes, they're new to Spelljammer. Okay, let's talk about the Neogi or the Neogi. The Neogi are tiny spider eels that are Italian space traders.
They're slavers.
Umber
too.
Hulk
Very important to note
also slavers.
that they are slavers. Everyone hates them. They're evil spider people.
But they're everywhere. And there are so many great plot hooks with the Neogi that you can throw into your campaign. It's great to have like a villain that is, they're kind of like to me, like a flipped Jabba the Hutt. Like Jabba the Hutt's not that scary. He's a big blob, right? But he's got all these powerful servants. And the Neogi are the same way.
Yeah.
Right? They're not super scary by themselves, but it's the fact that they have networks of power around them.
We've talked a lot about how we feel about inherently evil races and things like that. So bear in mind, this is a 1989 book, and it leans very heavily on Neogi are evil, goblinoids are evil, lizard folk are dumb, gnomes like to blow stuff up. It's very, leans real hard on the, the race science angle. So just bear that in mind. It also, these books make very heavy use of the word Oriental, which is, it's not.
They're referring to Oriental adventures,
which is not the preferred terminology. Sorry, not the preferred nomenclature anymore. Anyway,
so let's talk about some other
time,
cool.
There are some cool
details
things
from Spelljammer.
So
yeah, let's talk about Rob.
Well,
what's your?
I mean, there's a lot of things I like, but tell me what you like,
okay.
Matt.
Okay, sure. Let's go through them. The Mind Flayers.
Mind Flayers so fucking
get
cool.
A serious boost in this, and this is one thing that is spread out from Spelljammer into the rest of the lore. In Spelljammer, it's been established that the Illithids are basically intent on conquering all crystal spheres, and almost all Illithids are capable of spelljamming. We've all seen probably pictures of their nautiloids. They've made it into other adventures, whether those other adventures have spelljamming or not. So, yeah, the Illithids in this are super cool.
Yeah, they have really awesome ships. Like, yeah, you've seen the nautiloids. They look like a nautilus. They're, a terrifying and dark foe. Not the most powerful, but, they're out there in the dark, and, they may board and take your vessel, and they've got slaves, and, they're up to nefarious things. There's so much cooler than just squid people living in
regular mind flayers.
Regular mind flayers, yeah.
It gives mind flayers, and I know like some other sources have talked about how mind flayers are actually from the future and traveling back in time, and that all kind of works with this if you ever want to use that.
It's very complicated, but also cool.
It's super complicated, but the idea that all mind flayers are part of an intergalactic empire that is, only started conquering your world is pretty fun.
It's pretty cool. Who else gets an upgrade?
A downgrade is elves.
Yeah.
Elves have really cool botanical ships. That's fun. They also are basically the dicks of space. They have armadas. They, a couple generations ago, fought an intergalactic war against goblin kind.
Yeah, they genocided the goblins. they did.
They genocided the space goblins.
Yeah,
the Skrull, space orcs. And they're real dicks about it. They will intercept your vessel and be assholes.
Yeah, I was reading. They're just like,
that's pretty boring.
I was reading like this. And there's just no more goblinoids anymore. Because the elves killed them all. And, I guess there's like a few running around and like, pirates or whatever, but they're basically like all their like spacefaring ability was wiped out by dick elves. However, the art that does not suck, a lot of it is ship art, and some of the coolest ship art is like the elven ships. This is so I want to take a bit again as somebody who loves ships. I love ships. I love the sea, Matt. I love to go about on my vessel. And
your first and last love.
Always. And Spelljammer has such an interesting mix because by its like explicitly within the rules, like half the people who go to space are like, I have placed a helm upon my galleon and we are now going between the stars. And then the other half are like, I have built this vessel specifically for spelljamming. And so you've
got normal and batshit weird.
Yeah, exactly. So you can have like a insane nautiloid ship ramming what is essentially just like a galley in space, which it's weird but also cool. Some of the like we didn't
the hammerhead, hammer ship,
the tyrant ships
the squid
are
ship.
Super awesome and super weird, like capital class horrifying vessels that would put the or star destroyers to shame. And then also just like really normal ones. Some of them is like a good mix of like, this looks like a ship, but also a spaceship, like the tradesmen. These are all. This is, I think, one of the areas where real good work was done. The gnomish sidewheeler, which we discussed, is very steampunk.
Here's the problem. Like, they were so close, I think, to figuring out a really cool art style. The tradesmen, which, please Google tradesman Spelljammer and you'll see what we're talking about, looks super cool. And I think with a few tweaks and maybe like 20 more ship designs that followed it, you'd have this kind of still maybe Renaissance medieval ship feel, but it would feel like a spaceship.
Yeah, things like the squid ship, things like the Neogi mine spider is, again, these are just like super. Matt's right; they don't quite like have a cohesive feel, but you're sort of getting an idea for it. I wish somebody would just go through, just take everything and then just draw like 20 more and just release a like Spelljammer ship folio. All of them look good. They're just like there's not enough and they don't quite come together. All the elven ones look a little bit like, like butterflies or other like delicate bug things. This is cool. The dwarves, they just like carve their ships out of fucking asteroids. They live in asteroids. This is cool. This is fucking cool. They just like haven't like given us anything more than, and dwarves live in asteroids, and they've carved them into these enormous vessels, which they power with their love of commerce.
And of course, gnomes are basically, someone read something about 40K, and gnomes are 40K space travelers, where their ships shouldn't work, but somehow they do.
Yeah, there's a lot of emphasis on how everything the gnomes make blows up, which, is a fun bit, but also I can just see that get really annoying.
Maybe
really quickly.
Tired.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I guess maybe it wasn't such a tired trope in 1989, but this just desperately needs an update.
I mean, there was Dragonlance did
no,
that
I know.
already,
I'm not
right?
saying it was new, but it wasn't quite so tired.
If you want better flying ship art, there's a couple designs that I absolutely love by Bin Wooten, who has done 1 million Magic the Gathering cards and D&D art. He did the art of, do you remember Absalon from Pathfinder campaign setting?
I
the
do,
picture
yeah.
of the city, that's him. He draws ships really well, and he draws a bunch of space flying sailing ships that look sweet and are my personal favorite. So yeah. Speaking of ships, the favorite upgrade besides the Illithids here is Beholders.
Yes.
What do Beholders do, right? They're kind of this monster. It's like, they're a super hard challenge. What's their point? I don't know.
They got a lot of eyes, Matt. They got a lot of eyes.
A lot of eyes. In Spelljammer, beholders are basically evolutionary Nazis is maybe the correct
Right. They're like,
way to describe.
they're big on, I guess, not like genetics, but like, biological superiority and like breeding other races and things
And
like
then
that.
they grow their own ships too.
They're like the Yuzhan Vong, Matt, of
They're basically the Yuzhan
of Star
Vong.
Wars, which
Pre-Yuzhan Vong.
no longer exist and never happened. So all of the books I read that included
Don't
them
know who
were
you're
a
talking
waste of
about.
time. But yeah, I mean, basically they're organic ships, and again, the Tyrant ships, they've got 5 different versions of it in the Lore Book of the Void. They look cool. They look scary. They look like something that a beholder would fly around in. They make great, like in Spelljammer, they make great like individual villains or like overall big bads. This would be a super cool thing to borrow, to have like crash land on your campaign setting. If you just want to like steal something from Spelljammer, is, oh shit, a beholder tyrant ship has just landed. All sorts of bad things can come from that. Again, Matt's right. This is one of the cooler, definitely like a big upgrade. They've, just some things have just been given a substantial boost in terms of having been thought through. Instead of just being, it's a bad squid thing. Oh, it's a bad eye thing. Spelljammer's like, okay, how do we make these terrifying monsters in space? And they did a good job.
Spelljammer also has a small handful of cool monsters. I don't know if you looked at the Monstrous Compendium, Rob, but
Not this time around, but tell me what's in there that's good.
The Arcane, a mysterious race of traitors that you can basically plop down whatever plot hook you want to have. There's also some ideas for basically space xenomorphs, space reptilians, and of course space whales, and the iconic giant space hamster.
That's right. Giant space hamster.
It's a giant space hamster. There's a lot of one-joke monsters and things in Spelljammer. Like, there's a species you can be as the player characters called deck apes. The Hadosi, get it? It's a joke about sailors. They're deck apes. Anyway.
This is one of the areas where, one of the areas where I wish that they had spent twice as much effort and given twice as much space is they do have a section on factions. Well, I guess they're like military brotherhoods, but there are some cool things here. The pragmatic order of
let's
thought.
talk about factions.
Which
The pots,
I love. Actually, I genuinely like, this is such, it's not like original, but it's it's a loose organization of good to neutral freedom lovers who, hate slavery and fight against it. And they're weird and kind of philosophical, and they, transcend various crystal spheres and travel through the universe.
Right, they're like space abolitionists, and they don't get a lot of shit done, so of course they need the player characters.
Right. They're super cool. There's others, the Long Fangs and the 10th Pit and the Company of the Chalice. These are decently well thought out. I wish they had twice as much information. These are just a paragraph, right? Wish that we knew more about, I guess they're probably in some of the books, but a bit more about the orcs and the goblin races and their...
The orcs in space, Rob, they're Skrull.
They're Skrull.
It's orcs backwards, in case you didn't get that.
There's
like I said, there's a lot of one-note jokes here. I think
I'm angry about it. Also,
yeah.
The taxonomy here is entirely
Spelljammer.
off.
Yeah.
The goblin races includes kobolds and ogres, which we know are an entirely different subspecies of different than goblins, hobgoblins, bugbears, etc.
Only now do we know this.
Yes.
We didn't know this back in the 90s. Look how far modern science has come, Rob. What an exciting age we live in.
It is. Well, what else is there?
There is just some extra deep Spelljammer lore, Rob. There are a bunch of adventure compendiums and standalones, the best of which is one called Wild Space, which is a name I absolutely love. And it's about a beholder trying to build a beholder Death Star. You should absolutely run it for your players. Maybe.
I did.
All the other ones are pretty terrible.
Matt did run this for me and our group, and we did enjoy it. We got stuck during one of the very complicated puzzles, I think, and had trouble reaching the conclusion. But in general, it was a lot of fun, and it's just a cool setting. It was it's a great setting.
Now, I would recommend that if you are, interested in doing this, you spend your time with the 3 books that give details about the established campaign setting Crystal Spheres. I think they're pretty useful to steal from. There's some pretty wacky worlds. The extra book that, you can buy all these on the DM's Guild, Practical Planetology, also has basically the entire book is kind of what you wanted, Rob, which is a list of wacky worlds for your players to visit.
Yeah.
I think Pathfinder has actually done this better with their Distant Suns book.
Oh, yeah. So, oh, gosh. We didn't even mention Starfinder, which is sort of like a spiritual successor to Spelljammer.
In a lot of ways, but in a lot of other ways, it's not. Right?
Yeah, no, I know.
It's a space. I mean, there's lasers and hackers.
It's sort of like a combination of Spelljammer and like Journey to the Barrier Peaks in terms of like tech and things.
It's like, what if wizards and mages and clerics figured out everything in Journey to the Barrier Peaks and then built a society on it a couple thousand years later?
I only bring it up now because it is something that we should talk about at some point, and it's sort of relevant to this, but you're right that it's kind of its whole own thing. So put a pin in that, I guess.
If you're like, wait a second, I would like to play Spelljammer, but I want to start with a cool own Spelljammer setting instead of just, why do Spelljammer if I'm just going to do the Forgotten Realms, right?
Right.
There is a source book for that. It is called the Astro Mundi Cluster, and it's bats at about a 200 average.
So, not great. So what would you recommend if people want to do a Spelljammer specific setting that they start from scratch?
I would recommend that. There are a couple of interesting ideas in the Astro Mundi cluster, including a basically Trader Baru Cormorant Empire of Masked Mages.
That's cool.
Yeah. But the big plot of that book, spoilers, I suppose, for a source book no one will ever read, is that the Mind Flayers want to destroy the sun, which will kill all life in the thing.
Why do they want to destroy the sun?
Well, sun hurts Mind Flayers. Sun bad.
Sun bad.
But also, Mind Flayers need people who use the sun to eat their brains. I don't know. They haven't thought it through.
This is just like when the vampires in Blade were trying to turn everybody into vampires. What are they going to fucking eat, man? What are you going to fucking eat? That was a really bad plan. They should thank Blade for foiling it, honestly.
The Daywalker saved the Nightwalkers.
Yeah, honestly. Okay, so I have not read all of the source books. I have read a few of them. Matt is the clear expert here, but the verdict is, Matt, that
I've established dominance. Thank you, Rob.
That most can be skipped. That there's not any reason to go digging through all of the deep ones. You said the ones that are focused on each of the main settings, Dragonlance and Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms are worth picking up.
Most of the other ones can skip. The another one that bats 200 that has slightly useful things is the source book on the Rock of Brawl, which is kind of a pirate haven gone legit that you can plop down in any crystal sphere you wish.
Oh yeah, I was gonna recommend.
There's a little details about it in the main.
I
book,
remember that. I was thinking if I were going
to
start a Spelljammer specific campaign, I would start it probably in the Rock of Brawl or something.
Well, there's a whole book for you.
It is unfortunate. There's a very brief section in the lore book of the Void about starting your campaign and about like different hooks, but it's very brief. It doesn't give you a lot to work with. And I don't feel like this doesn't feel like a horrible missed opportunity to me. Like I'm not like as disappointed as I am by like some books that missed the mark, but there definitely is just like a lot here that there isn't. What's missing, I am missing it quite distinctly. You know, there's a lot that I would like to see, but you know, the cool thing is that this framework leaves a lot. Like, you don't have to like do a lot of work to build on top of this, right? Like, you're not going to be contradicting anything or having to like work around existing lore to make Spelljammer work, because there really isn't any. Also, I'll tell you what I love about the Spelljammer setting. No fucking heroes.
Mm-hmm.
There's no main characters. There's no Drizzt. There's no Elminster. There's literally nobody. There's not even like, you know, some iconics like there are in Pathfinder. There's literally no. Is this correct? Like, basically no named NPCs in the main books. There's probably some in some of the extras, but really you can get started and make up, like, the players are literally the only important people because there's nobody else mentioned.
That is absolutely correct. The downside is that there's no villains either. There's no one to kill.
Right.
There's no interesting characters. You'll have to make up everything from scratch. I do hate to break it to you, Rob, and this is very sad news. Brace yourself, please. Elminster has been.
Ah, fuck. Of course he has.
Space.
Of course he's been. I'm sorry. I realize I said that, and I'm like, oh, right. But, like.
He's written a book about it.
But Forgotten Realms is still a part of, you know, it's all a part of it. So they're still there. But I guess, like, of course Elminster has gone to space, but most of them don't. And if Elminster, tell me this, riddle me this, Matt.
Sure.
If Elminster goes from realm space to Kryn space and fights Raistlin Majir, who would win? Who's the main character there, Matt? Huh?
Oh, Rob, well, the answer is easy. I mean, we all would win because who wouldn't want to see this fight between two epic mages and heroes of Dungeons and Dragons lore?
All right, let's. What are our final thoughts on Spelljammer, Matt? What's our big takeaway here?
Listen, Spelljammer lacks all of the things that you truly need to, I think, do what most people imagine Spelljammer could be, like advice for running a campaign, like a series of Firefly or Star Trek or any of the, you know, stories we love about people hopping from planets to planets. However, there are some nuggets of gold here that if you want to splash in a bit of interplanetary travel and space as an ocean, or even run a whole campaign, you can build from there, but you will have to build.
Mm-hmm. I've criticized this before, so don't get mad at me for being inconsistent. But to me, Spelljammer is largely an aesthetic. It's a feel and an idea, and it's a massive cosmetic upgrade to basic to D&D in a good way, but you're required to fill in all of the blanks, right? You're like, great, I watched that, 80s heavy metal cartoon, and I want to do that in D&D, and Spelljammer is right there, baby. That's how you make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the rub, right? Is if wizards, for some reason, which they won't, kowtow to just basically Twitter hooligans,
if we shouted at them loud
shouting
enough
at them
to make them
about
make Spelljammer.
Spelljammer needs a serious creative vision behind it to make it interesting, because just saying D&D in space is not enough. It wasn't enough 30 years ago when it came out, and it's not enough today. However, as someone who's run 2 Spelljammer campaigns, heavily modified, I absolutely love it.
It's a lot of fun. It's a cool idea.
It's something new to do in D&D. Travel to new worlds every week.
It feels fun. It's an easy transition, right? Like, the villain, like the bad guys are cool, and the settings are interesting, and there's a lot to do. And yeah, of course, you're going to be running like a different type of campaign, and ultimately, if you really wanted to, you could easily transpose back and forth a nautical campaign and a Spelljammer campaign, but it's its own cool thing, and it's something different.
If you want to take your pirate nautical campaign and turn it up to 11, then there's no better idea than just get weird with it. Especially, and here's the missed opportunity, is Spelljammer gets weird, like, oh, you go to a crystal sphere where all the planets are cogs in a giant clockwork, interesting, clockwork machine around the sun, which is actually a giant campfire tended by a lonely old man who's 1,000,000 miles tall. You can do that, but you could get even weirder than that, and
and that's the thing, is that D&D, I mean,
because it's magic.
It's just not as it exists today. It doesn't want to get weird. It's not going to want to get weird. And Spelljammer is weird. Like, so is Planescape. They're both weird, right? And I think this is the reason why Wizards is not going to really commit to either of these settings, is because it's too far from the norm. I mean, Eberron, sorry, this is totally irrelevant, but I think the reason why Eberron suddenly worked is not because Wizards changed their mind, but because the sort of like culture aesthetic caught up to steampunk, magipunk enough for it to be familiar to players. And so, the weirdness of Spelljammer is, the off the wall things is just never going to be a good fit for Wizards. So you're on your own, folks.
Well, all right, we're jamming. I wanna jam it with you. We're jamming, and I hope you like jamming too. And the rules ain't no vow. We can do it anyhow.
Two final thoughts. One of my favorite things that I've actually taken from the Spelljammer books is in some random book, I have no idea where, there's a line of text about some evil space fortress being surrounded by space mines. What are those space mines, you might ask? They are necromantically raised skeletons curled up into little balls of bones, and when a ship gets near, they unfold and board the ship.
It's amazing. Like, it's amazing. It's just like,
yeah.
Just think about it. Just think about all the possibilities.
It was one of my players' favorite encounters.
Think about all the
possibilities
of D&D in space. Think about all the things you could do. It's amazing.
Giant living asteroid, big planet eater guy, all your favorite, I think, okay, we were wrapping up, but now I got some more steam. Is that like Spelljammer, and now that it's back in the public consciousness, needs to draw not from, Aristotelian, like, conceptions of the cosmos and just saying it's a D&D thing, but in space, but on the deeply weird cosmic comics of Marvel and DC, where there are giant planet eater guys and
living planets,
people living in
Yes.
Green Lantern and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well,
shit.
there are like Gaia worlds or like living planets and in Spelljammer, and they mention them, but they don't go anywhere near deep enough. And imagine the possibilities of one of those going rogue or being the center of, eating other planets. I mean, get weird. I'm sorry, we didn't even mention this because I thought it was going to come up, but like, there's also like a whole section on space beasts. It's like, hey, this planet is held up by an elephant standing on the top of a back of a turtle. And this one is held up by a lady fire giantess. And there's these giant space monstrosities in every other crystal sphere because why the fuck not? Why the fuck not? This world is a flat disc. This world is a donut. It is that way. Just get used to it.
You mean a Taurus?
I do mean a Taurus. I actually genuinely. I'm sorry. I would never.
The final thing is the final tragedy of Spelljammer never getting off the ground is there was once when Dungeons and Dragons was trying to expand its market in the early 90s, a game called Dragon Strike. Have you ever heard of Dragon Strike, Rob?
Boy, that sounds familiar.
Did you ever play one of those board games or party games that came with a VHS and you stuck it in, and it would be like fast forward to minute 30 and play the thing.
No,
right?
but I remember my friend, a friend had one of those that we never played, but yeah.
Dragon Strike was such a game where the Dungeon Master was replaced by a VHS. And so there's all this weird tape of the Dragon Strike VHS. I wonder if anyone still has a working one. And then there was a dumbed down version of D&D that you could play without a Dungeon Master. They started making a sequel to Dragon Strike, of which we have a commercial of. You can find it on YouTube called Wild Space. And it's the most batshit insane commercial you will ever watch. We will link it in the show. Please watch it.
I have watched it. It is amazing.
Wild space!
There's a moment where a hero yells, and then for no reason, a woman just stabs him in the gut. It's so
It's
good.
so good.
And there's a bunch of
And what's
like
amazing
bat
is that
people.
there may be context for that, right, within the. But we'll
Within
never
the
know.
game, right?
We'll
Yeah.
never know. We will
No
never
one
know.
knows.
We will never know why she stabbed him.
I did some research. The only information we have on Dragon Strike : Wild Space.
Somebody
is
knows in the WotC
Somebody
vaults,
knows.
Someone
knows.
There's got to be a copy of it, and I'm gonna break in and I'm gonna take it.
Rob,
one
top men
last
are working
job.
on it.
One last job, Matt.
Rob, top men are taking care of it. Top men.
Top men.
All we have is an ad in Dragon Magazine and that one commercial.
All right, everybody. Thank you for
of the
listening.
world that could have been.
Think of what we've lost. Think of what they took from us.
It's the meme of this is the world if Spelljammer had continued being published. And there's the really nice floating cars and a weird aesthetic that looks like ultraviolet.
Or what's
with
the
Charlize Theron.
They banned our medicine, so we'll take their cures and something like that. I don't remember. That's Spelljammer. Anyway,
It would be
all right.
Spelljammer. The world could look like a Transition Lenses commercial if
That's right.
only.
If only Spelljammer had remained
Had not
one
been
of
killed.
the canonical settings. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. As always, please rate, review, hit that motherfucking like button.
Send us an email at dmofnone@gmail.com, or you can send us a Twitter message.
Yeah. At DM of None. Stay healthy, stay safe, and keep rolling them dice.
This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade. And the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare. This is Major Tom to ground control. I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way, and the stars look very different today. For here am I sitting in a tin